Hello. So I am rolling some pre-rolls. Oh, did you give me one of those?
I'm working on it right now. Go ahead and start with.
You have to make that. That part's not done. Okay. So I was doing this, but anyways. So we were talking about how people smuggle drugs
into the United States.
The United States. And Jedi Rich was saying that he thought it was the military, and I said, no, not usually, but sometimes. Sometimes they do. So I was in the Air Force for 4 years, and my job was on the AWACS plane, which is the Airborne Warning and Control System. It's the plane that we use to you send it off in the wars to track the planes, and we talk to the fighter pilots and tell them where the good and bad guys are. And then it's also a plane they use for drug ops, and they also use for missions like watching the president's airspace, which I did a bunch of times. It was President George W. Bush when I was in the military. But anyway, so we were talking about how they smuggle the drugs in, and I did drug ops in Ecuador, and I was saying it's very, very easy for them to smuggle drugs because all you have to do is fly low and slow. People think you want to be like really fast with the drug plane, but it's actually the opposite. Because here's the thing, the only way that they know when you're flying in the sky is if you let them know what you're supposed to do with a flight plan, or if you're visually seen by another plane, or if you're seen on a radar screen. But to be seen on a radar screen, you have to be in certain areas. So like, to be seen on a radar screen for like around airports, you have to be flying near an airport, and then you'll get all those air traffic controllers to see you. To be seen on a radar screen for a military radar screen, well, we have to be doing something in that area to have our AWACS be seeing you. And then the other way would just be visually if someone saw you, or if another plane saw you. So it's very, very easy for planes to smuggle stuff into the United States because we can't track every single plane that goes in the air. It's just impossible. And the thing is, so all those drug planes have to do is go fly low and slow, and they want to stay hidden by the terrain. So often they're coming from South America, and there's a lot of mountains, and that's very, very easy to be hidden. And so my job was to try to find the planes when they were going through those mountainous areas, and try to, because here's the thing, the AWACS, I'm going to tell you guys some, this is top secret information, some of this. Anyways.
Classified.
Well, no, it's actually top secret. I won't tell you top secret stuff, but I'll tell you guys some stuff that they normally don't say. But anyway, so here's the misconception. The AWACS plane is the big plane with the rotodome on top. People have this misconception that like you can see like tons of stuff with that. You can't. That's why it's classified and secret and top secret and stuff, because they want people to believe that you can see more than you can see. But it looks like an Atari screen, to be honest, and everything comes out as just a dot, and that's a radar. So anything moving at a certain speed will get these radar, like it's like a little square is how it comes up on the screen, and it's your little radar data. And then you'll get a trail if it's something that's like moving, something that is continually moving. And things that can get that can be boats, can be whales, can be birds, can be planes. So it can be things other than a plane or a boat. So animals can also cause that. And then they also have just radar clutter in the sky. And so it's so easy for those planes to disguise themselves to look more like clutter or to look like an animal, and they do that by flying low and slow and changing their altitude a lot. So they go up and down, so then you go, oh, that's not a plane, because planes don't generally change their altitude that much. So those are just some of the easy things they can do, and then no one spots them. And because you're looking for, well, we were trying to look for the low and slow and alternating, but even then it's really hard to tell, is that just something else? Because you get so much of what they call radar clutter. And I'm gonna put this in here. I'm making these pre-rolls here, so that's pretty fun. But yeah, it's crazy to think that the government really wants drugs not in the country. It's so when I was doing drug ops, it's really funny. When I was in Ecuador, this is when I was 19. I was working for the Air Force, and we were working with supposedly the Ecuadorian Air Force. It was supposed to be like this co-op mission. But what would happen is we would tell them we're all of what we thought were the drug planes. It'd be like guys flying low and slow and alternating their elevation and stuff, and they'd be like, "Oh, don't look there. Don't worry about that. That's just something we're doing. Don't worry about it." And then we'd be like, "Okay." So we'd be like, "Okay," because we just had to relay the information, and then we can't really do anything in their country. But they say they want America to help with the drug ops. But we don't really want to stop it, and neither do they really in reality, because all of it makes money, and it also, for these small countries, is the way they make their money. So like Ecuador makes most of their money through Colombian drug imports and exports, and that kind of stuff. So they really don't want to stop that drug trade. But they have to pretend they want to, because everyone just pretends that's what we want. And what's really funny though, because it was so frustrating, because we'd be like, "Oh man, we definitely got one. We got one," and we'd tell them, they're like, "Oh yeah." Every day it was like a new thing of like, "Oh, that's a training mission we got." And we're like, "What?" And so we never caught one plane, but when we actually had the Coast Guard, then they caught some boats and stuff. Because then with the Coast Guard, we worked with our Coast Guard, not with Ecuadorian. If you ever work with the Ecuadorian government, they were like, "Oh, no, don't worry about that. Just ignore that." So, but it was very interesting. But I am all for drugs being legal, to be honest. Actually, I'm really happy Portland just decriminalized, Oregon just decriminalized drugs for the most part, I guess. Like, you can't get in trouble for having any drugs there. Which, this whole war on drugs was just Nixon in the 80s just saying drugs were so bad. Now we know weed is becoming legal everywhere. And it's just ridiculous that it ever was illegal, especially weed. Some things, some of those harder drugs, you still shouldn't be illegal, because everyone should be able to, as adults, decide what they want to do. But I can see where they, fear some of those. But weed should have never even been in that category at all, because it's not even a drug, it's a plant. So the fact they made a plant illegal is insane. Like, that's insane. And people are still in prison for a plant, for either smoking it, or consuming it, or selling it, a plant. I mean, and they're in prison for life. And you can still go to prison in certain states. It's insane in certain countries. So it's just crazy. So we always travel with our bong, and they always inspect our bag, because I think it always smells weed too, because all our stuff. And so we always get TSA inspecting our bags, but they never. It's nowadays, I don't think it's much of a deal to even travel with weed, because, like, especially if you're going from state to state, that it's legal. Now, if you stop in a state is not legal, yeah, you're probably,
watch out.
Yeah, like Arizona, oh man,
Or Texas.
Those guys try to look for it.
Remember in Florida?
Florida, they had actual dogs.
Dog sniffers.
Yeah, dog sniffers as you walked by with your bags. You're like, oh, you had to carry your bag, so when you got, but that was because it was international. So when you were coming off an international flight, you had to get your own bags, and then you had to walk them by the dog, which was super uncomfortable because it was like this weird thing where they told you didn't really know what was going on. So the dog, they would just kind of walk him around you, but he'd be like sniffing you, and you're like, okay. And they're like, just don't do anything, just walk. And you're like, okay. I had the bong in my bag then too. I was like,
Yeah.
But the bong seems to be all right. It's not illegal to carry a bong around, so they just don't know what it is, so they always inspect it. And they're like, we just get the things you don't know until you get your bags, and then it'll say they put a thing in there, and if it's something, because like I pack my stuff, so if they have to untape it, then they'll retape it for you. But and they'll say TSA inspected it, but usually if it's not something they have to repackage, you'll just get a little flyer in there saying your bag was inspected. But often they take our stuff apart because I pack all the stuff because it's glass. But anyways, so this idea that like the government doesn't really want drugs is not true, because most of these governments are all for it, and especially once it makes money, then they're even more for it. They're only not for it to appease the people. So as people became more conservative, then governments will push that way. But that whole Nixon thing, I don't know what his trick was. But ever since then, now we have like the ninny nannies.
Well, it's very obvious. In the 60s, they were coming up with, they were telling everybody that sugar was good for you and that bacon was bad for you. Okay?
People were getting smart.
No, literally the government was saying that. So they also said, hey, guess what? Weed cures everything.
Oh, you know what else?
And all
you know what the big
all of
thing-
Nixon's friends were selling more pharmaceuticals.
Oh, and I forget the other big thing, a big thing that equated for them making weed illegal actually was a lot of racism, because at the time, it was known that in black clubs and things like jazz clubs that they smoked weed more and stuff, and it was also known that in the black culture, so they were also trying to find ways to arrest black people and make that illegal. You know what I mean? Because there's always been this push. Now we're hopefully going the other way.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's good.
But they were saying a lot of the making weed illegal was a racist thing, because they thought, like for a lot of these racist white guys that wanted a way to easily arrest black people because they often smoked weed more often than the white people. Same with why they made crack a way more offensive thing than coke when it's actually the same thing, because they knew that it was more common in the black culture, so they wanted another thing where you could like they're looking for ways to make it easier to arrest people back then. Now I don't know what they're doing. Hopefully they're gonna chill out. I know in New York they are defunding a lot of the police, and then today they would that guy get 3 counts of
something like that.
3 counts of murder for the George Floyd.
All right. Do you have more to say today?
I think that's it. We were just
Wrapping it up.
but yeah. That's it.
Did you want to keep yammering?
No.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for watching.